Becoming a star in the NFL is a curse and a blessing.
Bigger story, Mahomes going back to the Super Bowl or Lamar Jackson falling short?
I think it's Lamar Jackson falling short. I hate to say it, but I believe that is the case.
With all the money, fame, and fans that come with it, the expectations also begin to rise. Let's get into our list of the 10 NFL stars with the most heartbreaking losses. Jared Goff. Former number 1 overall pick out of Cal, Jared Goff has had a lot of highs throughout his NFL career. And, also a lot of lows. We aren't just talking about the crushing reality of having your team of 5 years trade you away for a new quarterback and immediately turn around to win a Super Bowl. Though, that is pretty heartbreaking in and of itself. But he's had some pretty brutal losses on the gridiron over the years. So much so that it's actually impressive that he continues to have such a positive outlook each season. Because, man. Going down the list, there are a couple of big-time heartbreakers to tack onto the Rams winning a Lombardi trophy without him. Take Super Bowl 53, for example. He had led the Rams to the big stage with one of the most explosive offenses in the entire league. And considering they were going up against Tom Brady and the Patriots, the expectations across the sports world was that the game would be a barn burner and that both teams, Los Angeles in particular, would be putting up points in bunches. But instead, Goff and the Rams were just held to a measly 3 points in a historically low-scoring Super Bowl loss to the New England Patriots. That game could have cemented his place in NFL history, and with the Rams. But instead, he threw for just 229 yards, no touchdowns, and just couldn't find any rhythm. And then was subsequently traded away not too long after. Last year, his Lions didn't have quite the same expectations as his old Rams team, but still, the loss that they took in the NFC Championship game after having a very nice lead was painful in and of itself. And what about the year before when they took care of business during the final week of the season but were still boxed out of the postseason? Yeah, when you really take a step back and look at it, Goff's career has truly been a series of unfortunate events. TJ Watt. TJ Watt is bar none one of the most talented defensive players in the game to date, but that hasn't prevented him from having some heartbreaking losses. 2023 is a pretty great example of that. The Steelers went into Week 18 needing a win and some help to get into the playoffs, and they rallied to knock off the top-seeded Baltimore Ravens, albeit without Lamar Jackson, but hey, still a huge win nevertheless, that the Steelers eventually qualified for after the Jags lost, and, well, needless to say, Pittsburgh did not stand a fighting chance without him. His Steelers were dispatched by the Buffalo Bills 31-17 with ease, and all Watt could do was just stand on the sideline and watch. For a competitor like Watt, that had to be excruciating. The year prior wasn't so great either. Watt was coming off his record-tying 22.5 sack season and ready to make his mark against an obviously tough Chiefs side. He even started the wild card game against Kansas City with a bang, recovering a fumble for a touchdown to give Pittsburgh a 7-0 lead. But sadly, that was about as good as it got for the Steelers. Mahomes and the Chiefs went on to score 6 straight touchdowns and blow out the Steelers in an embarrassing fashion, 42-21. Just adding yet another tough pill to swallow for TJ Watt. Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has had more than his fair share of postseason devastation, but the 2020 NFC Championship game loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers might be the toughest of them all. Rodgers had the Packers in prime position, home field advantage at Lambeau, a shot at the Super Bowl, and everything seemingly in his favor. Plus, if he was able to do it against Tom Brady, it would have been a massive feather in his cap legacy-wise. But unfortunately, that Packers offense stumbled when it mattered most. And a controversial decision to kick a field goal instead of going for it on 4th and down sealed Green Bay's fate, as Brady and the Bucs walked away with the win and eventually the Lombardi trophy, furthering the gap between the generation's 2 best quarterbacks. Then there was a wildcard loss to the San Francisco 49ers all those years ago when the Packers couldn't stop Colin Kaepernick to save their collective lives. And of course, the near miss on the comeback from 31-10 against Kurt Warner and the Cardinals, and, well, for number 12, the list just goes on and on. Julio Jones. If you're wondering if Julio Jones is retired yet, the answer is no, he's still out there. He had stints with the Buccaneers and Eagles in 2022 and 2023 respectively, and is still technically a free agent, hoping to get picked up despite appearing to be past his prime. And if you're out there wondering why a guy might hang on for so long, well, maybe it's because he has suffered so much heartbreak in the pursuit of a championship that he just wants to win one no matter how small his role on the team is. You know, just to soothe his soul. When you look back at his career, there are perhaps no losses more excruciating than the infamous 28-3 collapse in Super Bowl 51. Particularly when you zoom in on Jones's career in particular, because the future Hall of Famer had one of the best catch stretches down the sideline that will never be remembered as it got washed away in that loss. Imagine adding that and a victory of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl to his already ridiculous resume. It would have just completely changed the narrative around his entire career. However, this was not his first introduction to playoff disappointment. People forget, but in 2013, Jones and the Falcons blew a 17-0 lead over the 49ers as well, despite an 11-catch, 182-yard, 2-touchdown showing from Jones. Ouch, that one also has to hurt. So, yeah, I can understand why he's still trying to chase after that championship. Brock Purdy. For a relatively young quarterback, especially one with as improbable of a rise to stardom as Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the 49ers signal caller, has actually had a good bit of football tragedy to his name. Purdy was the feel-good story of the 2023 season, as the then-rookie quarterback took over for the 49ers midseason and led them all the way to the NFC Championship game. Everyone and their mother was speculating if he had the chops to lead San Fran to a Super Bowl. But, well, unfortunately, we'll never know, because in that game against the Philadelphia Eagles, Purdy suffered an elbow injury early on and was unable to continue, effectively ending the 49ers' chances. And last year, when he was healthy, it was a crushing overtime loss to the NFL's boogeyman, Patrick Mahomes, and his Kansas City Chiefs. It's still early in Purdy's story, so hey, maybe better days are ahead. But for all the success that he's had, this has also been a somewhat tough way to start a career. Jaylen Herz. Jaylen Herz has had a couple of different flavors of heartbreak already during his young NFL career. There was the obvious embarrassment of his team crumbling down the stretch last year and getting dispatched by the Buccaneers in a wild-card matchup that frankly they shouldn't have even been in, as the expectation was for them to win the division. And on the other side of the coin was the loss in Super Bowl 57, where Herz was an absolute baller all night. He threw for over 300 yards, accounting for 4 total touchdowns and nearly willing the Eagles to victory. But sadly, his very heroic performance just wasn't enough, as the Kansas City Chiefs staged a late-game comeback punctuated by a controversial holding call that set up the game-winning field goal, and the Eagles fell 38-35. And what makes this one even more painful was the devastating turnover that he committed down the stretch of the game that aided in Kansas City's victory. That will definitely leave a sour taste in a guy's mouth, especially someone as competitive as Jaylen Herz. Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has been one of the most electric and dynamic players in the NFL since his MVP season in 2019. But when it comes to the playoffs, his story has been one of frustration and sorrow. For Jackson, the most painful chapter may have been written in the playoffs last season when his Ravens entered with all the hopes in the world. And you know, the stars looked completely aligned for them to make a deep run. They were just spectacular all regular season, and meanwhile, the rival Chiefs looked horrible, and they emerged as the AFC's top seed, seen as one of the clear Super Bowl favorites. And it finally looked like Jackson had exercised his postseason demons against the upstart Texans in the divisional round. But sadly, it all came crushing down in the AFC title game when he laid an egg against the aforementioned Chiefs. The quarterback struggled with his accuracy all game long and looked generally out of sync as the offense mustered just 10 points in this very embarrassing loss. But it always seems to go that way for Baltimore with Lamar at the helm. Derrick Henry. For as dominant as Derrick Henry has been throughout his career, his postseason experience has been riddled with some really gut-wrenching losses. Derrick Henry's career has countless signature moments, bruising his way to 2,000-yard seasons, stiff-arming defenders into oblivion, but you know, when the lights shine brightest, his Titans always seem to fold. Like in 2019 when they got outmanned in the AFC Championship game by Mahomes and the Chiefs. And recently it's happened with Henry, the heartbeat of the team, putting up a flat stat line. I mean, just take a look at his past 2 trips to the playoffs in particular, where Tennessee went one and done both times with Henry not eclipsing 62 yards in rushing. It has to be a tough blow to the ego for a guy like Henry who is so used to performing at the highest of levels. You'll have a chance to change the narrative around this year in Baltimore, but beware. If the Ravens make it to the playoffs and he suffers more heartbreak, there may be no coming back for one of the NFL's all-time great running backs, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins' career has been interesting to follow, as the quarterback has often found himself on the wrong side of playoff heartbreak. One of the toughest moments for Cousins came in the 2022 wildcard round against the New York Giants, when after a 13-4 regular season, his Vikings crumbled against the underdog Giants. And the game ended 31-24, with Cousins opting for a pitiful checkdown on 4th and 8 that dominated the news cycle for weeks to come. But Cousins' postseason struggles go beyond just that one game. In 2019, after an emotional overtime win against the New Orleans Saints in the wildcard round, Cousins and the Vikings were dismantled by the San Francisco 49ers in the divisional round. Thus, there just appears to be no shortage of heartbreak for poor Cousins. Josh Allen. Josh Allen has done a heck of a job turning the Buffalo Bills around over the past few years, but he's done so at a cost, as the Bills have had a few tough pills to swallow during that stretch. Perhaps none more so than the infamous 2022 AFC divisional round match against their vaunted rivals, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Those guys sure caused a lot of heartbreak. Regardless, Allen gave Kansas City all that it could handle and more, throwing for 329 yards and 4 scores, and leading the Bills to what looked like a game-winning drive, only to have his trusty adversary, Mahomes, work some dark magic and tie the game despite only having 13 seconds left in regulation to do so. Then he had the misfortune of having the Chiefs getting the ball first in overtime, where they marched down the field and scored, meaning that all Allen could do was watch as his hopes for a Super Bowl went down the drain. Salt in the wound on that one, the NFL turned around and changed the rule the next year so that in the postseason, both teams had a chance to score in overtime. Oof, that's gotta hurt. But hey, which NFL star do you think has had the most heartbreaking losses? Who do you think we got right? Who do you think we got wrong? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, then hey, clicking the like button helps us out a ton. And you know, we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.